Well, guys, we are learning more about Jacksonville's potential options when it comes to their temporary 2-year relocation. The original stadium rebuild estimated to cost right around $1.4 billion. And a little snippet I saw from a Sports Illustrated article, if they were to straight up build a new stadium in Jacksonville, they're saying it would cost $2.4 billion. So they're saving roughly $1 billion by going with the renovation. The seats are pretty much remaining the same. They're adding a few on here and there, but the big thing they're doing to TIAA Bank Field is the translucent roof that is open and does have airflow throughout the stadium. So that is the big thing there. $1.4 billion. I'm still skeptical on the funding, but the initial reports say half of it is going to come from the owner. The other half is going to come from the city of Jacksonville. The stadium is owned by the city of Jacksonville. Now, guys, let's get to this Daytona 500 option. About $100 million would have to be dumped into this area of the track to really renovate it for NFL. You can see some temporary seating. I think they would change this a little bit. If they had the NFL, they would probably add some seats. But realistically, the one thing I was thinking, looking at this alignment, about 95% of the seats, are behind the track, which is where the normal seats are for the Daytona 500. If you put up more temporary seats right behind each of the end zones, or in this case, with this rendering, behind each of the goals, they would block the majority of seats behind them. So I could see that as an issue. That's why it really could be unique to where there might not be any seating behind the goalposts and end zones on either side, with just very small temporary seating on the other sideline, and about 95% of it, which is the standard seating. And then in an article, it does say that based off of the location of the stadium, you guys got to understand the Daytona 500 track is just massive. You can fit so many different, I saw a map of like so many different pro stadiums inside of it alone. And the seating, the total seating is about 45K to 50K seats that would be visible from the grandstand. So about 50,000 total. Overall, it does seat up to 150K, but that's going around the entire track. There's no way they could do that. It's just way, way too big. So that is the situation surrounding. And then the new update on that is they're meeting with the Daytona 500 to possibly look into options. How much would it cost? They're saying around $125 million in renovations. I think it just does not make any sense to do this unless they were like, well, it's a better option because it's closer, but to me, it doesn't make any sense. It just seems like it would be honestly, I'm rooting for this to happen at the Daytona 500 because I just want to see the alignment of it and I want to see the renderings. I'm not going to lie. But realistically, this has got to be the last resort. You would much rather play at Camping World Stadium in Orlando. Maybe they're saying, well, that's 2 miles away from Jacksonville. We don't want to play there. But it just seems like such a better option because it's actually not an NFL level stadium, but is it really that much of a step down from TIAA Bank Field? I really don't even think it's that big of a step down. It's very similar. And they're talking about, I don't know what's going on with Camping World Stadium right now. They're saying they want an $800 million renovation in taxpayer money. I don't know what's going on, but they've renovated it back in 2014. I think they need an upper deck renovation with new seating. That's what Camping World Stadium needs. They would host games in 2026 and 2027, so they would have time to get ready, but I still view Camping World Stadium as the number one option. And then there has been talk about Ben Griffith Stadium for the Florida Gators as the other main option outside of... Also, I will say, how about the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp? Yes, the minor league team. Could they turn a minor league stadium into an NFL stadium? Things are getting crazy right now with these temporary homes because the next thing we're going to be talking about, I surmise, is the Cleveland Browns playing at Progressive Field. It's not going to happen, but it would be hilarious if that happened. But the Browns are probably going to need a new home, and they may actually have to go to Canton, Ohio, and play at the Hall of Fame, where the Hall of Fame game is, for 2 seasons when their stadium gets rebuilt. And I'm guessing they're going to be completely redoing the entire lakefront area there in Cleveland. But just getting back to this, when it comes to playing at college stadiums like the Swamp, it just doesn't make any sense. I feel like they would run into crowd issues, because doesn't the Swamp seats like 70 or 80K? Are the Jaguars really going to pack in that many people in terms of an attendance? I think you would run into problems in terms of that, which would really dampen the environment. It would be something that would be cool for a few games, but after that, it would just look out of place, in my opinion, like NFL games happening there. And then when it comes to the AAA park, if they really want to stay close, that would be the one option I would say that they would have. There's also been talk about North Florida, but to me, that is such a big renovation. That would be like, you would have to be obsessed with staying in Jacksonville. And maybe the owner is. Maybe they are obsessed with it, because that is very important. But the North Florida idea, you would have to spend like $200 million on that, it feels like. It is not, they have a track going around the thing, if I'm not mistaken. So realistically, Daytona International Speedway is more closer to Orlando than it is Jacksonville anyways. So wouldn't it just make sense to travel a little bit further and just go to Orlando, where it's a custom fit NFL type stadium that's basically vacant right now, other than hosting like the Citrus Bowl or whatever? It just seems like the most obvious answer, in my opinion. I believe the Camping World Stadium is also hosting the LSU Florida State game, which is a huge neutral site week 1 game for college football. And then again, just taking a look at the rendering, these are not official. This is if it were to be soccer. But I do think this is very similar to what you would get for an NFL setup. Again, the issue with putting stands directly behind the goals or the end zone is you would block the view of the people from the original grandstand of the Daytona 500, and you would have to install a custom field and everything like that. And the only temporary stands you would really put up would be on the other side, and it would be a pretty small grandstand right there. And the reason the capacity would only be 50K is because it's kind of like the phenomenon at the Carrier Dome when they have college basketball. You can only put people so far down the line until it becomes impossible to watch. I don't know if you guys understand what I'm saying, but it's like the stands keep going, but the field doesn't, so you can't keep putting fans down there. It's like the exhibition stadium thing. You're just not going to be able to see the event, so they're not going to sell tickets over there. But that is just the update on that. And then we do have an update on the pool situation from a designer. The pool is staying, which makes complete sense for sure, in the stadium renovation. On the north end, just below those pools, we are lifting that portion of the seating bowl and creating a new club space and a new bar space there at the concourse level. That's one of the big things that they've preached, is they're making the concourses 4 times wider, and they are keeping the pools, which is something that they absolutely should do. It is a unique factor to the stadium. If the costly project comes to fruition, the swimming pools will likely no longer be the first thing people spot at TIAA Bank Field. So it looks like they're trying to scale them back a little bit because they're having other features enter the stadium rather than, right now they do look out of place at TIAA Bank Field. I just hate that name. It's just so hard to say. It really is. But at the stadium, the pools stick out like a sore thumb because really it's an old stadium and they just put in the pools. That was a newer renovation, so it does look bad. It should look a lot better if this happens. I still do have some concerns on the funding because, $1.4 billion for a team like Jacksonville, that's a lot of money. And you're talking about taxpayers paying for half of it. It gets pretty ugly. I know the city of Jacksonville owns the stadium, but this is not like a $300 million renovation. those are kind of the numbers that we normally throw around. I think part of it is, I mean, if it was going to cost them $2.4 billion to build a new stadium in Jacksonville, that's probably just due to the fact that they want to have a roof so bad. I mean, if you think about it, think about what it costs in Nashville, $2.2 billion, and then what it costs in Buffalo without a roof, 1.54 or whatever it is billion. If Buffalo had a roof, they would be at 2 billion too. So the cost of a new stadium right now in the NFL, with how bad inflation is, it's $2 billion if you want to have a roof, 1.5 if you don't. Basically what they're saying. So we'll see if this happens. The Daytona 500 option still seems like a long shot. I think they're just exhausting all of their options before they inevitably go to the Camping World Stadium in Orlando, Florida. There is a lot of incentive. I know Orlando really wants to get an NFL team, even if it's just for a few years. They recently made their MLB pitch, so I'm sure if they do get the Jaguars, there's going to be a big incentive to, renovate Camping World Stadium, make sure everything is ready, invest some money into that. It has received renovations in the past, but it would probably need more to get ready for an NFL team. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.